Welcome to another edition of Bases and Balls with our good friend Guardians broadcaster Jim Rosenhaus on board with us. And Rosie, loved the call from Minnesota the other day. Calhoun with a 3-run home run. It was fantastic. But that's not the first time that Cole Calhoun has come up big for us. He had a very good road trip. He's been hitting basically since he signed for us. And to be honest with you, a lot of Guardians fans didn't know who this guy was about 3 weeks ago. So maybe you've probably had a chance to sit down with him a time or two. Talk to us and educate us a little bit about Cole Calhoun.
He's Roy Hobbs from The Natural, Ray.
We
Where did
hope
this
so.
guy come from? But you say that because, look, he's a longtime major leaguer, and he's going to get his 10 years of service time in with his time here. Most of it with the Angels as a good player for them for many, many seasons, but for whatever reason couldn't find a major league job this past offseason. So he went to AAA with the Yankees for a while, and then eventually ended up with the Dodgers AAA club, but couldn't get out of AAA until August 1st. And that's when, obviously, with a lot of roster moves for many, many teams in baseball, including Cleveland, there was a spot. They felt they needed a veteran presence, especially when Josh Naylor went down. So they signed him and were able to bring him to the major leagues for the first time this season. But again, he's been around the block, and really he was saying he really went to work in the off season and then during his time at AAA to make some adjustments at the plate. He felt he had gotten away from what had made him a longtime major leaguer with the Angels, and he's been able to get back to some of the good things that he does well at the plate. And it's funny because obviously yesterday the home run was big, but he said I was trying to become too much of a power hitter, and that's not his game. With the point being, he can still hit home runs if he's swinging the bat well, but when you try and hit him, how many players you hear say that? That's not a good thing. So anyway, he cleaned up some things offensively, and he's just been tremendous for this ball club in so many ways, and certainly most notably on the field in key spots. Twice on the road trip in extra innings has had the game-winning base hit.
We're not too far away, Rosie, from Josh Naylor coming back. He looked pretty good down here at Canal Park the other day, 1-for-2 RBI single, and his bat will be welcomed in the lineup for us for the stretch drive of the season. Do you foresee Calhoun staying in the lineup some way? And like you told me earlier, he's a natural outfielder, so he's going to need to get some at bats the way he's playing.
Yeah, he's an outfielder by trade, and as long as the Guardians are in the race, which they are now, 5 games back, I think Tito gets him in there every day, somehow, some way. Now, if they fall out of the race and he needs to continue to see some of the younger players, you get that. But if they're in the race, he's a huge part of why, and he'll play every day somewhere.
Speaking of bats, Bo Naylor has really put together some string of some good at-bats, and defensively too. Now, you see each and every inning from what I've seen, improvement in that aspect as well, the Sandy Alomar effect maybe. But talk about what you've seen in the growth of Bo Naylor.
Well, I talked to Tito about that yesterday on the warm-up show, Ray, and he said, look, he's a young catcher, so he has a lot on his plate, not just at the plate, but as you mentioned, defensively. And I think what's been really encouraging offensively, he's really tried to focus on what he does well and then having a game plan and sticking to it. Now, you're not always going to execute, but not veering off of that game plan when you know what a certain pitcher throws or have an idea. He's been able to stay with that, and he's been able to execute, obviously, with some key hits on the road trip. So that part of it's really good. The other part I thought was interesting, a couple of pitchers have said that he's really come to the forefront in the scouting meetings on the days he catches and they go over the lineup, how they want to work opposing hitters. He's really come to the forefront in there and taken a leadership role. It's not just the coaches saying, hey, this is how we should pitch so-and-so and so-and-so. Bo's going through those scouting reports and really having some opinions on it and working with that day's pitcher on what would work best. And that's what you want to see. really taking ownership of how a pitcher does and making that a big part of his game.
With us is Guardians broadcaster Jim Rosenhaus. And Rosie, you just said a minute or so ago, now that we're back in this race, just 5 games out. With that being said, Shane Bieber, Triston McKenzie are out there on the horizon somewhere. Are you expecting those guys back?
I do, but not till, they still haven't gone out on rehab assignments. They were in Minnesota, both of them, and they got off the mound for the first time, bullpens, so to speak. But like for Shane Bieber, he just threw fastballs, so he hasn't even implemented breaking balls yet. They're still a ways away. I would say don't look for them until maybe the last 2 weeks of the season, and maybe even further along than that. And when they do come back, not looking at 5-6 innings, maybe one or 2 innings to get it started, and then they turn to maybe one of the other guys. And this might help them too in not trying to overdo it with some of the rookies like Logan Allen and Tanner Bibee, and hopefully Gavin Williams if he's okay. So we'll see, but they're a ways off, but I think they will pitch before the season is done.
Well, you kind of stole it away from me. You mentioned the mound. I wanted to ask you about Gavin Williams and, describe it. He had a trip up on the mound. What do you know? You've probably talked to him about his injury.
He was going to get examined yesterday, just around game time. So honestly, Ray, I don't have any update on what's happening there, but something happened to his right knee that obviously caused them to pull him from the game after an inning. So hopefully he's okay. But in terms of the results of the exam, not sure yet.
Big weekend for us, right? We're back home. We've got the Rays coming in, and then the Twins Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday. 6, and again, this time of year they're all big, but you got 6 of them at home this week.
Yeah, and you know what, Ray? The Guardians have the way tougher path to try and track down the Twins than the Twins do in terms of holding off Cleveland from a schedule strength standpoint. I think I saw a note the other day. The rest of the way, the Twins played 9 games against winning teams of their remaining month worth of games. The Guardians play 20. So it's not going to be easy. They do have 3 against the Twins, which I think they like that because they just seem to have the Twins number. And that could change. But at least right now, they play with a lot of confidence against Minnesota. So we'll see. I think a lot. They have this homestand, as you mentioned, challenging. Tampa Bay, a really good ball club, and they're trying to chase down Baltimore for first place in the AL East. We may know a lot more before this team heads out to the West Coast at the end of this homestand. If that's going to be a big trip or just trying to grind out the remainder of the season trip, we'll see. But it sure looks a lot better than it did on Monday night after the game when they were 7 out, had a tough loss, and you didn't know where it was headed. So I think a lot more optimism heading into play on Friday night.
Well, looking forward to the calls, my friend. You got the Rays this weekend, Twins Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday next week. Bases and balls. Guardians broadcaster Jim Rosenhaus takes time out of his day to join us. WAQR. Rosie, as always, my friend, thanks again. We'll reconnect again next week.
Thanks, Ray.